Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 503. TowerGate, Thursday, July the 26th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. First, there was a comment left in the comment section yesterday from Patty, the lovely and talented Patty, who, of course, you're all familiar with. Thank goodness for Patty. And we were talking about the security clearances being revoked and stuff like that, and she asked the question, does the Rotten Reverend Clinton still have her security clearance? And it's kind of funny because she's not one of the people they're talking about right now, but this actually came up back during the Wiener laptop. People were talking about it then. And back then what we learned was that the Rotten Reverend Clinton not only she still has her security clearance, her top secret clearance, whatever she had when she was Secretary of State. But there's not even any interest at that time. We learned that there was not even any interest in anyone wanting to remove the top secret clearance of the Rotten Reverend Clinton, despite the fact that she still got that server. It's still going. She's still got the secret clearance. She's still probably getting information, and she's still got the server and probably still passing along classified information through her private server probably every day. So as far as I know, Patty, back when that conversation came up when they first had the Wiener laptop and they were talking about Hillary having emails on there, someone brought up this fact that she still has that server and that she still has the clearance. And you didn't see her name on that list of people that they're going to pull clearances from. Now, maybe there's a larger list. Maybe Trump's just having some fun. Maybe Rand Paul is serious, but maybe it's probably not going to happen. I really don't know. It should happen. These people should not have these security clearances. And especially the Rotten Reverend Clinton. She's still got the private server. Still got the clearance. So yes, Patty, as far as I know, at this point in time, the Rotten Reverend Clinton still has her top secret clearance. Now, I forgot to mention the other day when I was telling you about Jeff Sessions was at this event with speaking to a bunch of high school students, pretty conservative ones, obviously, and they broke into the lock her up chant. But also, I forgot to mention, as part of that there was quite a few speakers that day, and they had a big, movie screen, and they were showing, movie stuff, And one of the people who popped up on the screen there was Senator Magoo. Senator Magoo. That would be John McCain. Senator McCain, for those of you who are new to my channel. Senator Magoo. Yep, Senator Magoo even has his own theme music. And so when they brought up the slide of Senator Magoo, everyone started booing loudly. So that shows you that these young conservatives really, don't have any empathy for Senator Magoo because he's a traitor. And we haven't gotten to the bottom of his role in the frame-up. But believe me, we know that he was involved very early on in 2015, was part of the whole Alexandra Chalupa group, was part of that secret group that was set up in the Senate. We know that he was conversing with John Brennan, and it seemed to be that John Brennan's point men, Mr. Potato Head, it seemed to be his 2 point men in the Senate were Harry Reid and John McCain. So both the role of those two individuals, and in fact all three, when we get to the bottom of this thing, I think we're going to find that Brennan and Mr. Potato Head, along with Dingy Harry, along with Senator Magoo, the three musketeers, I think we're going to find out that all these guys were involved very early on and had a much deeper role in the propagation of the Trump-Russia narrative. That's what I believe that we're going to learn. So yes, he got booed loudly. And now we have Mad Maxine Waters. She's clearly schizophrenic. She has recently made a speech saying that it was a mistake for Democrats to call for the abolishment of ICE. Mad Max. You know, when Mad Max is not the most insane person in your party, you've got problems. You've got a lot of problems, because two of the leading candidates right now for Democrats in 2020 would be Kristen Gillibrand, the Rotten Reverend Clinton's close friend, although she did throw Slick Willie under the bus, and, of course, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. These are two of the top 2020 contenders to be the Democratic nominee. Now, a lot of people are talking about Biden and Eric Holder sending signals. These guys are morons. They're not even in touch with their own party, because in case you haven't noticed, Eric, you criminal, along with Joe Biden, Joe Bite Me, in case you guys haven't noticed, you're males. You are males. You are persona non grata in the Democratic Party, and especially Biden. He's got the triple curse. He's old, he's white, and he's male. And he thinks he might win the Democratic nomination? No chance. No chance. Now, Eric Holder is black. He is corrupt as all hell. And so he probably has a decent shot, but facing off against women, no way. The Democrats are not going to nominate a man, I don't think, if the left wing of the party has their say. White men need not apply to the Democratic Party. They've made that perfectly clear. We are the enemy of America and the world. We're the cause of all the evils in the world. Everything that's horrible about this planet is because of white males, especially conservative white males. We are the wart on the ass of America, according to the left-wingers. But Mad Max is basically coming out on the other side saying that you're going to abolish ICE is a mistake. You know, how crazy is that? When Mad Max makes more sense than the two top leading female Democrats, potential 2020 nominees. Of course, we still have Mad Max out there saying, that God put her on earth to take down Trump. She's calling for her supporters and, I guess, crazy lefties to challenge get in people's faces and to create civil disobedience. And she's calling for all this stuff. And, she's a site. She's what's the term? Can't remember now. But anyway, she's nuts. That's the bottom line. Yeah, and you got these stories that have been popping up the last couple of days. I think this is coming from Paul Ryan and his group of low IQ types, thinking, we're kind of preparing ourselves to lose the House. We think we're going to lose the House. I mean, what a moron. Just because the polls show that the Democrats are like 12 points off. Yeah, and they showed that Trump had absolutely zero chance of winning the election on the very night of the election. How'd that turn out? That's why, you got to look at polls, and we do talk about polls. But there's these polls, a lot of times are outliers, and particularly in the 2016 election, what was being done with the polls is the polls were actually being weaponized. I mean, they were purposely using fake polls to try to motivate people into a certain position. They were trying to put out this fake narrative based on fake polls to show people, oh, Trump is so unpopular. That was to make people who thought they might vote for him think, oh, well, I really want to vote for Trump. I mean, obviously, 90% of America doesn't think he's, should be president. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe 90% are right. Maybe I shouldn't vote for Trump. Maybe I should vote for Hillary, because that's what most people think. See, that's the game that they were running, was to put out enough polls showing that Trump had no chance, to try to get into the head of the peoples that wanted to vote for him and get them to think, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with Trump, huh? It did not work. And the Democrats, obviously, they always have an edge in these types of polls, because there are more registered Democrats than there are registered Republican, about 10% more. But there's something else. These polls, in a lot of ways, are a lot like popular votes. They're the Democrats, they may be talking to people who are highly motivated to go out and vote against Trump. But it could be a lot of those votes coming from Chicago or Los Angeles or something. Yeah, it can drive up the anti-Trump vote, but it's in a district he's going to lose anyway. So they don't necessarily do polls by electoral districts. So it doesn't always pan out that way. Plus, there's a long way to go between now and November. But it is kind of sad to see Republicans out there this early, this far from the election, especially as popular as Trump is with the base, to come out and say that, almost like they're accepting that they're going to get beat in November. We don't know that. In fact, I've already predicted, 2 weeks ago I made the prediction we would hold the House. It might be close. I expect we will lose maybe 15, maybe 20 seats. But the Democrats need 25. I don't think they'll get 25. They may get 22, 23, I don't know. I think it probably will be close. But of course, 4 months from now, everything could look totally different. And the reason why most of the time the sitting president will lose in his first term is because they go out and make a lot of promises and they don't keep them. So then in the first midterm, a lot of people who are highly motivated to go out for them and vote for them 2 years earlier stay home, or they're not so motivated because they see that the guy that they voted for really didn't actually mean what he said. And of course the other party who lost are going to be highly motivated to go out and vote. But I think that we're going to see a different thing happening in this midterm election because Trump's very popular with his base and he is keeping his promises, doing everything he can to keep his promises. And the Dems are in disarray. Their party is being split. And there's a lot of those extreme leftists who will not vote for the establishment candidate. They're going to go into the midterms a very divided party. Whereas I think that the Republicans pretty much have now coalesced around Trump. And the never-Trumpers are pretty much out of the game. They've already thrown up the white flag. They've already all said, like 50-some-odd Republicans are leaving the Congress because they can't stand being there with Trump. So they've been taken care of. They're not a problem anymore. And they'll be replaced with much better Republicans who support Trump. Trump's going to come out of this much stronger. I think he'll be much stronger after the midterms, and I am predicting they'll hold on to the House. I expect it will be close, but I am thinking they will hold on to the House, and I think the early indicators are what we're seeing in California. There was a few seats that they really needed to flip in California, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, the Republicans shouldn't be out waving the white flag at this point, but it doesn't surprise me. That's how these guys are. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. A lot of these guys want to lose. They're on the other team, believe me. Let's wait and see what happens. That's why I always look at aggregates of polls. You throw out the top one, you throw out the bottom one, you look at the aggregates, and you're usually going to be pretty close. 2016 was an anomaly because they were rigging the polls purposely. Well, the Occupy ICE protesters, I believe this is up in Oregon. It's either Oregon or Seattle, one of the two. It's either Oregon or Washington, where these ICE protesters have been occupying out in front of the ICE building or whatever for a few weeks now. So these Occupy ICE protesters have now built a wall to protect them from ICE, while holding signs saying, "No border wall, yes to sanctuary cities." There's nothing funnier, believe me, there's nothing funnier. I hope you get a chance to see the pic. There's quite a few pics of it that are kind of going around. And there's this group of crazy lefties holding signs saying, "No walls, yes to sanctuary cities." No border walls, yes to sanctuary cities. And they're standing back behind this makeshift wall that they built to keep them, to have a perimeter between them and the ICE officers, who are probably just waiting for the order to go kick off on their asses at the first available opportunity. But it's just funny. I mean, talk about irony. You're standing there behind a wall that you built with a sign that says "No border walls." They don't even realize it, man. These are some dumb people. Very dumb people. Well, let's see. Oops. Trump has gotten concessions. Yes, he's gotten concessions from Mr. Juniker, Jean-Claude, Mr. Juniker, love Juniker's face when when Nigel Farage is tearing him a new one. And you can bet that once Juniker gets back to, or Junker, I think is how they actually pronounce his name. I think I guess in the West we call him Juniker, but I think in Europe, I think they call him Junker, Mr. Junker, Jean-Claude Juncker. So anyway, I'm pretty sure that after caving and hitting his knees and conceding to Trump on the EU trade issues, I'm sure once he gets back to the EU and the very next time that they're in session, I'm sure that Nigel Farage is going to have quite a good time with Mr. Juncker. He's not as funny, he's not as crazy looking as Van Rompuy, and I don't know that remember the time that that Farage told Van Rompuy that he looked like a second-rate bank clerk, and said something about his suit, his cheap suit, and he looked like a second-class bank clerk. He was a funny-looking dude anyway. He kind of looked like Martin Van Buren. But anyway, he was a crazy-looking dude, by the way. Anyway, it looks like Trump has gotten those concessions from the EU on trade. Also, we have China backing down, but they only back down to the tune of $200 billion. That's not good enough. So Trump's getting ready to lock it down on them a little tighter. And he's told him that today. Said, yeah, I'm getting ready to really crack down. You made some concessions, but not enough. So we got to push a little harder. But Trump's going to win on the trade issue. It's going to be a big win, and it should be wrapping itself up probably toward the end of the summer, early in the fall. These little trade issues will be worked out. Everything will reach equilibrium, and Trump will have won big on trade. Yes, he will. And he's gotten another prisoner back home without having to drop 150,000 or 150 billion or whatever it was on the tarmac. So the American pastor who's been held in prison in Turkey has been released. So I guess Erdogan got the message. So the American pastor has been released from Turkey. So Trump succeeds and wins again. He just keeps on winning. Are you guys tired of winning yet? No. Probably the biggest news in the last couple hours that's been breaking. Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows, along with 9 other Republicans, have introduced impeachment articles against Rodentstein. Yes, the beady-eyed little operator, the beady-eyed little snake, Rodentstein, the beady-eyed little mutant Rodentstein, is now facing articles of impeachment. Now, I believe they will have to get a full vote on this, and I really think Paul Ryan is going to probably twist a lot of arms and force a lot of people into not voting for this, because Paul Ryan really doesn't want this to happen, of course. But it'll be interesting to see who can put the most pressure on these other members. Whether Ryan can put the pressure on these people, other Republicans, not to support the measure for impeachment, or whether Jordan and Meadows can apply their own pressure with these other 9 guys and remind these guys, hey, Trump's watching, so are all his supporters who are about to be voting for you or against you in the very near future. So it'll be interesting to see how this power play goes, but the very fact that they went ahead and introduced the articles of impeachment against Rodentstein, he's violated 3, 4, 5, 6 subpoenas at this point for documents and witnesses. Should have happened a long time ago. And it kind of puts Jeff Sessions into an interesting situation, but we all know. Where's my, oh yeah, don't have my Jeff Sessions glasses, but we all know Jeff Sessions. He must be watching mighty close. He can't be very happy about Rodentstein being impeached. No, he can't like that very much, because as we know, Jeff Sessions, he's busy. He's watching lots of crime. He's observing lots of crime. He's digging around, looking up around for a lot of crime, but he can't seem to find any crime. No, he can't find any crime, but he's got Rod Rodentstein. He's looking for some crime. Mr. Huber, he's looking for some crime. There's crime everywhere, but he just can't seem to find it. But that's okay, because this evening Jeff will be having some banana pudding, a cup of warm milk, and a belly rub, and he'll watch his favorite old shows from the 1950s on some channel on his internet, and he'll be just fine, because he's the Attorney General, and he's watching lots of crime. Yes. But anyway, it does put Sessions in a bit of an interesting position, because he's been totally supportive of Rodentstein. Now, as a result of the interviews with Loose Lisa Page, as a result of the interviews with Loose Lisa Page, Goodlatte, Gowdy, Meadows, and Jordan have been made aware of more documents relative to the dossier, and on Wednesday they went to the DOJ to request those documents. Also, they have been made aware of documents that tell all about Andy McCabe's activities in obstruction relating to the Russia probe. Remember, it was Andy who was going to throw Loose Lisa under the bus. He told Huckleberry Horowitz, when Horowitz asked him about, he had already discovered that Loose Lisa Page and what's his name, not Baker, the other guy, the press spokesman for the DOJ, had been the ones that were leaking these stories. And so Horowitz already knew that, and he was ready to come down on them too. But then when he went to talk to McCabe, just to find out how far up it went, McCabe denied everything, essentially throwing Loose Lisa Page under the bus. She, of course, produced the evidence that proved that McCabe not only knew about it, but ordered it. So she has no love for Andy McCabe. So she's directing them on which documents they need to be looking at. And apparently these documents could spell big trouble for both Peter Strokinus and Andy McCabe. But they're also got information that's got them looking into getting more documents on the informants, the agent provocateurs. And it appears that these documents about the agent provocateurs, the informants, whatever you want to call them, it looks like that these are going to be found within the realm of the State Department. Uh-oh. So we've been, at this point, assuming that these informants and all came in the early stages out of the CIA and the multi-agency or six-agency task force set up by Brennan, working with Peter Strzok and Clapper and the boys. But it appears that there may be some paper trails in the State Department which tie these informants to State Department officials. That could make it even more interesting. We'll see how they do. That meeting actually occurred on Wednesday. So, it appears that Trump has banned CNN from Air Force One TVs. I can't believe they were playing CNN on Air Force One TVs in the first place, other than maybe for humor, or because Trump likes to watch and see what they say so he knows what to tweet back at them. Be my only guess. Okay, we have Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, who thinks she's going to be the nominee in 2020, calling for big tax increases. She's suggesting as much as 50% for the top marginal rate. You're talking about people making a family income in the $150,000 a year range. Those people would fall into the 50% tax bracket. Now, there's a lot of Democrats whose family income, joint income, is in the $150,000 a year range. You tell those people you're going to hit them at 50%. I mean, taxes. These are people who just got a pretty big tax cut and are probably only in the 27, 28% tax range now. And Pocahontas wants them to pay 50%. Man, that will run a lot of blue-collar, middle, upper-class Democrats out of the party in a real hurry. Thank you, Pocahontas. You're an idiot. I mean, these are people trying to destroy themselves. And the Republicans are worried about losing to these people? Whew. Tells you how bad they are. And Trump sends out this tweet a couple days ago. He's really trolling the Democrats, man. He's trolling them and Uncle Bob in a big way. He tweets out that he's very concerned that Russia will push hard to help the Democrats in the upcoming election. That's great. That's fantastic. Well, we have Judicial Watch, and they have weaved together from documents they have received compelling evidence that Brennan and Harry Reid worked together to pass classified information to the media and to spin a narrative to attack Trump and undermine his campaign. Judicial Watch is requesting more documents that they believe will further demonstrate the plot cooked up by Mr. Potato Head and Dingy Harry to dirty up Trump. And this is really where the collusion narrative began. It's really where it began. It really began, of course, with Chalupa feeding the DNC, McCain, and that whole little working group. But it was Brennan who goes over to, it wasn't in the newspapers, the collusion thing wasn't really out there until Brennan went over and had that little meeting with Harry Reid. Then Harry Reid fires off the letter to Comey, which we've all read. And then a week or two later, we're told that they had another meeting. And that second meeting produced a second letter from Dingy Harry. But that letter didn't just go to Comey, it went to the media. And that letter specifically laid out the early narrative that Trump campaign officials were involved with Russians to rig the election against Hillary, after she had just rigged the election against Bernie, and while she was in the process, in fact, of actually rigging the election against Trump as well. She just failed against Trump. She succeeded against Bernie. Uh-oh. Someone has done some digging into the real estate records of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of her father, I guess, who, as we now know, wasn't just an architect, he owned an architectural firm. And we know that now she wasn't just this poor little commie from the Bronx. No. At the age of 6, she moved into this seriously upper-class neighborhood, and she grew up in a house that Daddy paid $886,000 for. $886,000. That's about $800,000 more than my house costs. I didn't grow up in an $886,000 house. How many of you grew up in an $886,000 house? How many of you grew up in something like that? I'm guessing about 1%, or 2%, maybe 3%. Very low. And my parents had pretty good jobs. My dad worked at General Electric. My mom worked at Procter & Gamble. They made pretty good income. We didn't. Our house, when we bought it, I think, was about, let's see, we originally bought it. We had 7 acres. We then, a couple years later, bought the 5 acres behind us. We had 12 acres out in the country. We lived out in the farm kind of area. I think that we got in that house for, I was in 7th grade, about $200,000 maybe. And then I think when my mom sold the place after my father died, my mom sold it about, 5 years ago. I think she got like $410,000 for the house. That was a 4-bedroom house, 12 acres, Southern Ohio, good area, excellent school district, $410,000. Here we have Cortez growing up in an $886,000 pad. Not bad, but I thought she was a poor little commie girl from the Bronx. And she's got those eyes and those teeth. Those eyes and those teeth. Man, I'll tell you, she's scary looking. Some of the still photos of her, they're frightening. She looks crazy. She got the crazy eyes. She got crazy eyes. She's got like Marty Feldman eyes. Kind of reminds me of that song. Remember that song, the Betty Davis Eyes song? They should do like a new version of it for Alexandria or Ocasio-Cortez. They should do the Marty Feldman, the Her head is hollowed out. Her teeth are big and white. Her commie lies are cold or old. She's got Marty Feldman eyes. She's got Marty Feldman eyes. Got rid of that scratchy throat thing going on. She's got Marty Feldman eyes. Yes, she's got eyes like Marty Feldman. Should scare the hell out of you, America. Even the commies. Even the commies. She's got Marty Feldman eyes. Ocasio-Cortez. But she did grow up in an $886,000 home. No wonder her eyes are so big. She was a child and they said, here's your new house. And she went. She's never been able to solve the problem. So her eyes have been wide open since then. Crazy looking. NBC poll says 56% of Americans say that the Democratic Party is out of step with America. But I remember it wasn't that long ago, there was a poll that had 50-some-odd% of Republicans out of step with America. They're all out of step with America. And I think that probably you got about 60 or 65% who think that Trump is in step with America. And then you have about 20% commies. I think that's really what you got. And that's where it's all going to shake out, because in the next 4 months, people are going to have to make a decision. A decision. Do you want to be a communist or do you want to be a capitalist? That's the decision. It's a pretty clear decision that people are going to be forced to make in November. I think it's going to go our way. So you have the leadership of the Democratic Party. Who is the leadership of the Democratic Party? Well, Ocasio-Cortez herself, the socialist, with Marty Feldman eyes. You've got Nancy Pelosi, who is senile. You've got Commie Bernie, who's, of course, a commie. You've got the rotten Reverend Clinton, who's just a mess. And she's looking worse and worse every day. I think she's sauced most of the time. Of course, she's a criminal who's likely to be indicted. You have Pocahontas, who's a dingbat. You have Chuck the Cuck, who's a partisan obstructionist. And you've got Mad Max. That's the Democratic Party leadership. If we can't beat these guys, we should quit. The date on the FISA that Rodentstein signed, I just looked at it, the date on the FISA that Rodentstein signed says June of 2017. June of 2017. 6 months after Trump was sworn in. Now, I don't know if that was the end date or the beginning date, because there were 90-day increments. I thought he signed the last one in March. So maybe that date on that FISA warrant I was looking at is when it ended until June 16, because I think it was. I don't think he signed it to begin it in June of 2017. I think he signed it in the spring, like March, and it expired in June of 2016. That still means that Rodentstein signed off on this well after Trump had been inaugurated, 3 months after he had been inaugurated, taking it 6 months into his presidency. Of course, Meadows and Jordan are also calling for Rodentstein to resign. Yeah, they just, brought impeachment articles against him. We'll see if they get the votes to move it through the process. It'll die in the Senate, but if they can get it out of the House, at least ways, it could force Rodentstein to step down. Maybe force Sessions to make a move. Something has to happen. You can't have the House of Representatives vote to impeach the Deputy Attorney General and have no consequences as a result. Something has to give there, even if it doesn't go fully into impeachment hearings into the Senate. It's just politically damaging. 22% of the U.S. population does not speak English at home. That's way too high. That's a problem. It's called losing your culture and eventually your country. That's what that is called. And of course we have Devin Nunes talking about the fact that he was skeptical of Brennan from the very beginning, because he says that all the information that Brennan had and all the information that Mueller's got and all this information is stuff they've known for years, stuff that Nunes had presented to Brennan himself time and time again, that was never acted on. But he said all of a sudden, once Trump won the nomination, it looked like he was going to win the nomination, here comes Brennan out of the starting gate with all kinds of Russia stuff he was never really interested in or pursuing before. All of a sudden he kicked it into high gear. And this is why Nunes says that he's been skeptical of Brennan since that time. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow for Fun Friday. You guys have a good night. Thanks. Bye.